let's get the read on this from two very, very smart guys. They were a huge help to me all during COVID. They were dealing with the same thing, of course, when it comes to Dan Geltrude, who's going into the office every day, which I just learned now he was doing that every single day. Mark, you'd assume he was at the office because he was in this gigantic mansion, and you just saw, you know, all the Picassos on the wall and all that stuff. I'm kidding, but very nice, and they're very smart guys. So Mark Hamrick, the great the senior economic analyst, Dan Geltrude, Geltrude & Company founder. Good to see both of you. Kidding aside, what do you make of first, Dan, on the earnings side, early in the process? I know we have some big ones to come, and Meta, and Amazon, and Apple, and Microsoft, et cetera. But how important will those earnings be to you on top of what you've seen thus far?
Well, I think they're always going to be important, Neil. Look, it's all about earnings. And as you said before, expectations were brought down. You know, that helps things along because we've kind of changed the rules of the game a little bit there. But listen, I think what it shows here is that there are a lot of companies that are still resilient in spite of what's going on economically.
The consumer is still resilient, right?
Absolutely. Even though we see consumer confidence down, people are still spending, Neil. Restaurants,
you can't get in.
Can't get in. Airlines.
I usually drop Mark's name, but they even still. You're going to have to wait, Mr.
Yeah.
He's right though. I mean, restaurants fill, the movie theaters fill, planes are filled. What's going on?
Well, it's very exciting to see New York so vibrant again. It's not quite so much where I work in downtown Washington, D.C. You can hear a pin drop there, and I think we need to be...
And that's on a busy day.
Exactly. Well, you say, how long has that been going on? But first of all, I think about the fact that there is not a single consumer. There are an array of consumers out there, and we know that many of the tailwinds that had powered them through the pandemic are now evolving into something that is potentially neutral, if not negative, the lack of fiscal stimulus, high interest rates. And I think you do have to come back to the don't fight the Fed. We just don't know what exactly the Fed is going to do. But so far, they've given us a number of brushback pitches that have sent those major averages lower. And I fear that with another FOMC meeting coming up, we may once again have a stern talking to by Chairman Powell.
All right. Part of the stern talking to, we're told, is another 3/4 point hike. Do you assume that's a given?
I think you have to say that's a given at this point. But what happens after that? That's what we don't know.
December is that there's a 50% chance, if you look at these Fed fund futures, of another 3/4 hike. Do you buy that?
Yeah, I think the Fed is pretty much set on a course that they're going to keep raising interest rates.
Do you think they're overdoing it?
Well, they could be, Neil, but I think their approach here is that they're willing to err by going too far because they could always bring down the interest rates.
But by then, we're knee-deep potentially in a recession.
No question about it. But, you know, Neil, I think we have to also think about what's going to happen in this upcoming election. I believe a lot of what's been going on economically, self-inflicted based upon policy. If the Republicans are successful, as it seems like they may be, the last few days, a lot of talk, Neil, does that force the White House to change direction?
So you're saying a lot of this run-up, I don't know if you agree, Mark, has to do with them thinking that Republicans romp in 2 weeks. So in other words, they take the House.
I think that could well
they even
be.
Take the Senate.
Yeah, I think that could well be. Yeah, I think the market could be looking at that and saying we're going to have a reason, to rally on those results. But you still do have a Democrat occupying the White House for 2 years.
But that means nothing gets done, which in the past Wall Street has tended to like.
Yeah, then you get into what happens with the debt ceiling. We don't want to have a repeat of what happened a decade ago with that, where the markets lose a lot of ground.
We'll push that to the brink again. Only.
You think so?
Yeah.
Isn't that the game, right? I mean, it's a game of chicken. Let's wait until the last minute and see how much you can get the other side to compromise.
What do you think about the market itself at these levels? I always like to talk, when I talk to smart guys like you, is it rich now? And to a man and a woman, I would say, if I'm going off my memory here, about 8 out of 10 seem to think, oh, no, it's still a tad rich market. Is it, after all this?
I think for most investors who are investing for the purpose of funding their retirements, it's the question to ask, but ultimately for them, you're getting in at lower levels for the long term, which for them is the most important thing. If you're a trader, you're finding opportunity from volatility.
But what if you had
a
all
shortage
these,
of that?
you had Amazon and Apple and Micro, all these tech names, and Now you're down 30, 40%. I mean, is it too late to cash out now? You just hope, keep your fingers crossed, hey, the turnaround is on.
I would say it's too late to cash out, absolutely, because you don't know when to get back in. You have to be right twice.
So what do you do?
Yeah, I agree. I think that you ride it out. Neil, listen, these tech companies being down, they're not going away. Right. We don't know where technology is going to take us, but these are the companies that are going to be on the forefront. Therefore, with them being down...
it's not like the meltdown we had or anything that, more than a decade ago.
No, I don't believe that. I really think there's opportunity, and I would tell people you got to stay in right now. Timing the market, you don't want to go there.
The average tends to be, after you come out of a market like this, you go back to a norm, but it takes some time, and we might be seeing anemic returns of 5 to 6% if we're lucky for years. Is that your view?
Well, Neil, I go back to what we were just saying about what the results are going to be with these elections.
Right,
you have the midterms, and then you have 2024. Now, if ultimately you get a flip to where you have all Republicans again, well, that's going to change policy, and that will potentially fuel the market once again. Happened in the past.
Average folks who've been looking at real estate, who've been maybe having to forget selling a house or buying one, what is it like for them?
Golden handcuffs if you're in a house that has a 3% mortgage and would love to, go into something that has a smaller footprint. You're not going to want to give up something that you love at the moment that has that lower mortgage, and you go into something with 50% of the real estate at a 6-7% mortgage. That's a big problem. It's weighing on the ability to free up inventory in the housing market, and the prospective young buyers are also frozen out. It's a big problem.
We have to sort that out. We're a long way from doing that. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both very, very much. In the meantime,